Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this episode of the Players NIL Industry Insider Podcast. And my guest today, Allyse Carter. Allyse, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
You know what? You reached out to me last week and maybe you made a comment on LinkedIn or we connected and I saw your background and I saw your interest and I felt your passion for helping and supporting athletes. And so I invited you to be on the podcast, not to mention that we're some 3 or 4 weeks away from tax season, April 15th. And so, Allyse, tell us a little bit about your professional career. You're a CPA, you're a tax accountant, and specialize in the area of athletes, done a lot of work with athletes. So tell us a little bit about your background and why you're passionate about this.
So, a little bit about me. In the past, I've been able to work with professional athletes, doing tax preparation, accounting, bookkeeping, family office. Currently, I work with a lot of small businesses, and I really just encourage college athletes, pro athletes, the newcomers, the high schoolers. You have to treat yourself like a small business now, with NIL, with marketing deals, with uh, if you work for someone, you get a W-2. You have to treat yourself like a small business and handle your financial affairs accordingly. I've seen some pro ballers, NFL players. I'm not gonna call them out. I don't want to get in trouble. But I've seen some Hall of Famers just not be good with their money.
Yeah,
And it's unfortunate, right? It's unfortunate. Because as a pro athlete, careers are short. As a college athlete, careers are shorter. And you might not make it pro. You may not. And I think the good thing about NIL is that you can capitalize. You can capitalize on your college career now. And that could absolutely set up a student athlete for the rest of their life. If they do it right, they could go pro. They may not need to, right? They may not need to if they plan properly.
yeah.
Um,
I think the name, image, and likeness era, which began July 1st, 2021, has been dominated by the big stories, sensationalized athletes, the quarterback at XYZ ABC University, um, making millions. While those stories I think are mostly true, there may be some fictitious stories out there, but mostly they're true. That represents a very small portion of the athletes.
it
The
does.
majority of athletes are not making six figures, seven figures, etc. I think the average NIL deal is still less than $3,000. I think the median NIL deal is still less than $100. But one thing that has changed dramatically is the shift to younger athletes. And now
Yes,
we have 40 plus states that allow NIL at the high school level.
right,
Let's talk about high school athletes or high school students in general, probably.
right.
What are some of the key financial pillars that you, if you had the opportunity to speak with young people, what do they need to know at age 16, 17, 18 before they even get into the revenue
You know,
generating portion of their career?
I was talking to somebody about this literally yesterday, the other day, and I was on the New Balance website because I'm like, do I need a new pair of sneakers? Maybe I do, right? And I saw they have a high school track star Olympian is the NIL high school guy. He's on the front page of the website for New Balance. And the first thing I'm thinking is, he's a high schooler. Like, is he 18? Like, who's signing his contracts? I'm no attorney, but I know you can't sign a contract unless you're the age of majority in your state, right? So, you know, a teenager is a kid to me, right? Are they thinking about it? I would never put that expectation on a child. But if you are in that arena, you have to grow up fast, Or you're gonna have to. If you're making money, if people are making money off of you, you have to know what's going on. You may not want to know what's going on. You may just want to practice and play video games and work out and hang out with your friends, but if you are in that capacity and you have the means and you are creating a revenue stream based off of you, based off of what you're doing on the field, off the field, on the court, you have to be cognizant of what's going on. You don't have to know everything. That's not even your job. It's not even your responsibility. You're
Right.
under 18. Technically, that's your parents or your guardian's responsibility. But you have to be aware. And like
So I
that's
think
all I can say about it. Like they just have to be aware.
right. So I think that brings up an interesting topic. Put the legal aside, and I think the parents have to sign, or a
Hmm.
authorized representative would have to sign a deal that you spoke about, that high school kid. But let's talk about what are the fundamentals that, and maybe we should be teaching the parents. I don't know. Maybe it's not just the kids.
That is also that's an entire different topic. Like we could come back and talk about it because being young as a layer of complexity that you just don't have when you're an adult, right?
So give me three or four specific financial terms, financial strategies that you would try to deploy to a high school athlete.
High school athlete. One, if strategies, tips, keep track of everything. If you get papers, and I know kids, nobody uses paper anymore. They're gonna mail you something. They're gonna mail you a 1099. They're gonna email it to you. They're gonna send it snail mail. Save all paperwork. I know as a kid, we like, you get the dog ate your homework. This is not you, the dog can't eat your 1099, right? The dog can't. So just keep track of your records. That's number one. Number two, if you are making significant streams of income, you have to keep track of your expenses. Like, but what are my expenses? Like, somebody paid me $500 to drink a sports drink on Instagram, right? Like, what am I what do I do, right? Well, number one, that $500 is income, right? That's income to you. This is when you need to call the professionals, right? You gotta call the professionals. What expenses could you take? They're out there. There might be some professional fees. There might have been the agent gets a cut. If you had to call an attorney to read your contract or just your time, right? And so you have to have people who've been in that world and work in that world, or just you as being educated about your finances, making your best guess as to like how much am I worth, right? How much am I worth? So keeping track of your expenses. Any travel, right? You had to ride to take the train to go take to a photo shoot or something, right? Those are all expenses. So as I said before, once you start making money, you're a professional and you need to act accordingly. You have to keep records accordingly because just because you're a kid, it's not a good enough excuse, right? You make 10 grand from an NIL deal, that's nothing to sneeze at. And so
Yeah.
you need to keep track of those expenses and maintain good records. So those are two things. Anything else you think I'm
No,
missing?
you know what? I love really simple, actionable things. These are really things that everyone understands. Probably no one does, but I
Nobody
think,
does.
yeah, keep it, keep it.
Listen, I don't do it. And the
Yeah,
kids today, they're on the computer. There's all kinds of apps. If there's an app that can help you with it, go find it, right?
right, right.
Like that's a
I think those are two great actionable insights. I love that. Keep track of your records, keep track of your expenses. All right, let's graduate a little bit older in life now. So now we're in college, this imaginary scenario. And now, instead of making $500, we're making $5,000. Okay.
Right.
So as you say, you're a professional, but you've just graduated to another level of income, another level of record keeping,
Right.
another level of expenses.
Right.
Freshman in college making $5,000, $6,000, $10,000. Tips and tricks for that person.
Honestly, nothing changes.
Okay.
That would be my thing. At 10 grand, nothing changes. I think what all athletes, and this is all across the board, um, NIL, marketing income, all of those things, sponsorships, whatever. Even if it's not cash, it's still income. So let's say, and this used to happen to the pro athletes I worked with, right? They get a 1099 from Nike for like $15,000. I used to ask my boss, I'm like, boss, $15,000? I don't see it on their bank statement. Where is it? And he's like, no, it's equipment, it's gear,
Apparel.
it's sneakers, it's apparel, right? If Nike gives you $15,000 worth of Nike, sweatpants and cleats and helmets or equipment, you have to take that into income. What do you do with that? You didn't get cash. That's when you got to keep track of those expenses, right? So if Nike gives you $15,000 worth of things, of swag bags, um, you need to keep track of, I use this apparel, right? And that's kind of the only way you can take those expenses, right? So you
Right.
can make it a wash, right?
Yep.
Because you don't want to take $15,000 worth of income and you ain't get no money, right? Like you didn't get the cash, right? So that's when you, the athlete, your advisors, whoever's doing your business for you, you have to keep track of that. That's when you have to keep track of it.
It's a great point, and I'm sure there's thousands of kids right now that are getting 1099s or got 1099s in
Right. And they're
January.
like, I didn't get no money.
Yeah. And
I
maybe they did this with the paper and threw it away, right?
I threw it away because they're cute. They're young. The young people. I'm getting old. I call it the young people. It's so funny. So I played basketball in middle school, right? That's my peak athleticism was like eighth grade, and I was still riding the bench, right? But it had me thinking, right? I'm like, the kids get NIL in high school now, right? I said, if my Roosevelt Middle School Lady Devils, right, got a NIL deal with Nike, right, and they gave us each $500 worth of Nike branded Roosevelt Middle School gear, I'd have to take it into income, or my parents would have to take it into income,
Yeah,
right? Does a parent even know, like, do they know what's going on?
probably not. Probably not.
Right. And it's not like it's a lot, but what do you do with it? How do you know what to do with it? And
Right.
the reality is the parents don't know, the kids definitely don't know, and they're not really supposed to. And
Yeah.
so I think that leaves a big old gap and gray area where unfortunately people could get taken advantage of because they just don't know.
Right.
I know, I've worked in tax and accounting for the last, I can't even count no more, 2012, 13 years. And
Right.
so I get it, and I know what to do, and I know what to look for. I wouldn't expect that. I don't expect that from a 15-year-old.
Right. Okay, so let's shift a little bit more. We're still on the college age student that's making 10 grand. Let's say up to $10,000.
Right.
We understand the pitfalls. You just described that eloquently. That was really great advice. But let's talk positively. What
Yes.
kinds of investment vehicles, what kinds of strategies, if you were to counsel someone that is doing the things that you said, they're taking care of business, they understand these things, you know, they're on full scholarship. Maybe they're getting $6,000 a year in Alston money for educational support. They have no expenses. Now all of a sudden they've made 10 grand.
Right.
They're 18, 19, 20, they're early college age. What strategies would you implore them to take? What advice would you give them to turn this into a long-term success story?
How can they save their money? Listen, if you don't have expenses, that's the best way to save your money. Um, save save as early as you can. Sometimes there's tax deferred ways to save. At 18, 19, 20, you probably don't have too much tax going on. So I'm here for the Roth IRA. Max out your IRAs. And I know retirement, listen, if you can, max out your Roth IRAs. It's not necessarily, tax, you don't get the deduction, but that's the whole point, right? If
You
you
don't need
got
it.
10 grand, you put seven of it in your Roth IRA and don't touch it, right? Let the financial advisors handle it, right? Let them, you know, to your investment, level. You don't want to be too risky, right? But you put it away, you try not to touch it, right? That is, if I had 10 grand and you give me 10 grand right now, it's probably what I would do, right? Just so you can start planning for your future. Because the tax benefits are on the back end. Um, as you know, start to make more money, uh, you have to think about, once again, as I started out with, your business, right? You start making money, big money, let's say tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands. You have to start thinking about, are you an entity at this point? Setting up an entity. Do I need to get
An
do I need to
LLC.
be an LLC? How am I going to be taxed, right? Am I going to be an S corporation? Am I going to, heck, am I going to go into business with somebody else to build my brand, right? This is my brand, right? It's me. I might get some investor. I might get whoever, right? So now we're a partnership, right? And all monies go into the partnership now,
Is there
right?
a threat?
So,
Is there a threshold? Like when should someone form an LLC? Is there a guideline for that?
what's funny? So I live in Florida, and LLCs are different in every state. And the reality is, I just did a presentation about this. LLCs kind of don't mean nothing. But what they do is it lets everyone know that you're in business. That's ultimately what it means. I'm in business. I'm in business in this state, right? Send all checks to here, right? Make it out to here, right? Make all deposits here, right? And it legitimizes your business. It's really what it does. It's the foundation of all other things, legal and accounting. In and of itself, maybe not too much, but it's the beginning of everything else. I would absolutely advise, if you're getting a few bucks, right, I would, you're an entity, right?
Yeah.
Why not set yourself up as one? Also, it might add a level of anonymity, is that right? So you can be a little more anonymous. Um, so, you know, your social security number is not on all things. You get an
Yeah.
EIN number with the LLC. So they send it to the LLC. They don't send it to you, right?
Yeah.
Even though you still have to take it all into income. But
There's an expense to create a corporation and to file a tax return. So you have to make a certain amount of money to justify that, correct?
you do, and I think that's at whatever level that person wants, right?
Yeah.
I had the luxury of being an accountant. I do whatever I want, right? But it has to make sense. And if it doesn't make sense, if you get 500 books a year, it may not make sense, right? If you're getting $50,000 a year, it's making sense. You need to start thinking about it.
Okay, so let's go to the next level. So now we've gone through our first 2 years of college, making 10 grand. All of a sudden we're starting. NIL is blowing up, pay for play, revenue sharing. Now I'm making $50,000 as a junior in college. Okay. And I've got a 2 year window here, my junior and senior year of eligibility. So 50 and 50 is $100,000. I'm sure the cautionary tale is the same. I'm sure that financial investment advice for the first amount of money is the same. What changes at $50,000?
Um, if I said anything changes, you better have some money for estimated tax payments. That is that is what
Okay.
that's when you really probably start getting hit, right? 10 grand and under, you're probably not paying too much tax. You get into the tens of thousands, you need to start prepping for estimated tax payments because you're not an employee, right? People are giving you money. They're 1099ing you. They're giving you gear. They're giving you trips. They're giving you cash, right? You get taxed on that, right? All of that is considered income to Uncle Sam. Technically, you're supposed to make estimated tax payments quarterly based on what you assume your income's going to be for the year. So if you know it's Q1 is coming up, right? It's almost the end of March. So if you know, all right, I made $5,000 so far. All right. You probably need to put the rule of thumb, I'll say is probably like 10 to 15%.
Okay.
Just keep that for taxes. You should pay it in. I know, a lot of people just, I'll wait till April, right? But in theory, you're supposed to pay it in quarterly. So if you know you made $5,000 first quarter, you need to be prepared. All right, I'm gonna owe tax on this $5,000, right?
Yeah.
I could pay a portion of it now. I could wait till next year. If you wait till next year, April, you could get hit with penalties and interest. Because Uncle Sam want his money on time. Like that's
Right. So, these are all, amazing pieces of advice, but we also know how young people are. They don't listen. They
listen,
don't,
young people, old
yeah,
people, all
open,
people.
right.
This is
So,
this
so
is
what,
gender and
what are
age
the,
people.
so in your career now, having worked in family offices with professional athletes and with small businesses today, how do you get across these cautionary tales? Like,
You
what
don't.
are the,
Experience. Sometimes they just gotta live it.
mm, yeah,
Sometimes you gotta live it. And I know I sound like a downer, but the people who listen, they listen
yeah,
and they do well. But sometimes you just gotta live it.
yeah, yeah. Well, look, there's more young people making money today than there ever has been. Um, we're going to have a lot of cautionary tales. We're going to have a lot of sad stories, especially after April 15th. But we have a lot of success stories too.
Right.
Without naming names, can you share a success story of someone that did all the things that you advised them to and maybe positioned themselves for the rest of their life? Is there a success story you'd like to share with us?
I it was someone I used to work with. I can't say I did it. And this was the client. I could give you a client example. And he pro baller. Um, he wasn't like the most popular guy, right? You had the Hall of Famers, and then you got the guys who just run of the mill football player, sturdy football player, right? And he didn't make nearly as much as the star players. But when I got to work on his account, at the time, he was worth 7, $8 million, right? I'm like, I don't even know this guy. I never heard of him. I had to go Google him, right? Sure enough, he had played for a big team and for some years and made his money, but it's what he did afterwards, right? He went into construction. He had something after football, right? And even if you make it in college, when you make it in college, when you make it pro. He did all of those things. He still had something after that. And I was like, this is great. Like he's living the perfect life, right? I wish I was worth, 8, 10 grand, million, right? 8, 10. And this was because he was smart with his money and he had a plan after sports. Because he
Uh,
made it all the way. He was not the cautionary tale,
yeah,
busted his knee in college. No, he made it all the way.
yeah,
And he was smart with his money and what he was going to do after sports, after playing the game, right? And for any athlete out there, what are you going to do after you're done playing the game? Because, you guys and girls, they start, it's over at 40. 40 is old for an athlete, right?
definitely, definitely.
Um,
Unless you're Tom Brady.
Unless you're Tom Brady, then you're pushing it, or LeBron James, you're pushing it. They're pushing it. But it's what is after that, right? What's after that? It's live it, you live it up when you're young, I get it. But what's after that? And you have to be smart with your money, with your taxes, so IRS is not looking for you, right? Because you spent up all the cash and now you owe tax on it. You don't want to be that person. Um, and just setting yourself up for success, being smart about it. You gotta be smart about it because it doesn't last forever, right? Unlike other folks, unlike you work in academics, my grandmother was a teacher for like 40 years, right? You can't quarterback for 40 years. And it's just because of the short career span. You have to think differently. They have to they push everything up. And so they do have to grow up, you gotta grow up a little faster
Right.
and be about your money sooner.
Really great words of wisdom. We're going to finish up here, but before we do, Allyse, if someone in our audience wants to get in contact with you, how do they find you? Where are you located? What's your business name?
I'm on LinkedIn. I'm a CPA in out of West Palm Beach, Florida. I like it. I like sports in general. I always have. And I'm on LinkedIn. I'm not hard to find. So
Great. Well, listen, I mean, I think you gave us really real world actionable advice and insights and some cautionary tales and a positive story, which I love to finish with that. So that was awesome. I want to thank you for your time.
thank
I
you.
want to wish you well during tax season. I hopefully you don't work too hard. And if there's a team in March Madness that you're cheering for, I hope that they go all the way.
I do too.
Great. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.
All right.